people say, what do you think about when you hit the wall? Thinking is the problem. All I do is focus on taking my next footstep to the best of my ability.
Welcome to On Your Lead, the show about the miles that make you better at life, leadership, and everything in between. I'm Thad David, a Marine Recon Scout Sniper veteran, speaker, and endurance athlete. Let's get into it. Today, we are joined with ultra legend Dean Karnazes. He's an author, one of the athletes that really helped put this sport on the map. I really truly brought endurance running and ultra running to the forefront, from running 350 miles nonstop without sleep, that I'm kind of excited to dive into. Multiple Western States finishes, 50 marathons in 50 days. And it's honestly, the list for you, Dean, could go on and on and on. It's incredible. How are you doing, Dean?
I'm well. I'm glad. Thanks for having me run by. I'm glad to be chatting with you. We spent a lot. It was like an ultra marathon to get this interview scheduled.
There was a lot going on. Well, and you are coming to us from Greece right now, back in your hometown, getting set up for an event. How's everything going over there?
Yeah, Athens is an amazing city. I mean, arguably the greatest city of all time. It's just because it's a city that has such incredible history. In the U.S., if something's 200 years old, we say it's ancient. If something's 2,000 years old, it's not even that old here in Athens. So the birthplace of democracy, the birthplace of the Olympics, and the birthplace of the marathon and the ultra marathon. So it's good to be here. Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody about my hometown, New Orleans, and I always like to ask people, what's your favorite place to go when you're there? When you are landing in Athens, work aside, what's your number one thing that you're amped up and ready to go do when you get to Athens?
I like running in marathon. So marathon is actually a place. A lot of people are surprised. They think marathon is just a race, but it's actually a place in Greece, and it's a beautiful coastal city. I love to run there and jump in the sea and go swimming. It's the Aegean Sea, so it's a lot different than my my home state of California, where the sea is rough. I mean, here it's calm, it's nice, and it just gives me the chills, to think that 2.5 thousand years ago, the marathon started right where, you're swimming, literally. Yeah.
That's incredible. So no surprise that you get there and you go run a marathon. Of course.
The best way to get over jet lag or, sleep deprivation is just to go running.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. So, I mean, one thing that there's a couple of things I'm excited to ask you about. But if you had to look at your career looking back, what's one run that permanently changed how you think about endurance as a whole?
I think it was the first ultra I did, which, to tell your audience the story. I loved to run when I was a kid, and I ran competitively until I was a freshman in high school. And then we won the cross-country championships. And I thought, that's as far as I'll ever take my running career. So I'm done with that. And I stopped running when I was 15. And then flash forward 15 years, and I'm in a bar in San Francisco on my 30th birthday, doing what a lot of us guys do on our 30th birthday. I was in there drinking with my buddies. And at midnight, I told them I was leaving. And they said, where are you going? The night is young. Let's have another round of tequila to celebrate your 30th birthday. And I said, no, I'm going to run 30 miles to celebrate my 30th birthday instead. And they looked at me and they said, but you're not a runner. You're drunk. And I said, yeah, I am, but I'm still going to do it. And I walked out of this bar in San Francisco. I didn't even own running gear, but I had on these comfortable silk boxer shorts, like silk underwear. And I remember peeling off my pants and throwing them down the alleyway and just stumbling drunk south into the night, into the darkness. And knowing there was a town called Half Moon Bay that was 30 miles away from San Francisco, I thought, I'm just going to run to Half Moon Bay. And, 10 miles down the road, I sobered up and I thought, what the hell are you doing? So this is a really bad idea. Mm-hmm. But it just felt right. I don't know what it was. Something clicked that night. And I thought, just keep going forward. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. It hurts like hell. But just keep this relentless forward progress. And you'll get there eventually. And, by sunrise the next morning, I arrived in Half Moon Bay. And, that run forever changed the course of my life. I hung up my corporate, tie at that point and said, screw it, I'm going to be an ultra marathoner. And, that was over 3 decades ago.
So as you think about that, I mean, because I know you talk about this a lot in your book, was ultra running, for you to say, screw it, I'm going to become an ultra runner, was that a really big thing? I mean, really, did a lot of people know about it at the time?
Yeah, I mean, this is 1992. So I didn't even know about ultra marathons. I thought, wow, because someone told me a marathon was 26.2 miles. I thought I ran beyond that. Maybe that's the farthest anyone has ever run. And then I met these 2 guys who were training for this 50-mile race. And they were like a different species. I thought, my God, these guys they're beastly. And I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of running 50 continuous miles. And, I said, where are the hotels? Where are the campgrounds? They said, no, buddy, the gun goes off and, you stop when you reach the finish line. And, his buddy kind of elbowed him and said, if you reach the finish line. I'm looking at me like, there's no way this joker would ever reach the finish line. So I went to the library, and I'll never forget, there was the Dewey Decimal System, all right, the microfiche. It was like microfilm. And I looked up this race, and I got the address, and I filled out the application by hand, mailed in my check, and went and did this 50-mile race. And it was the toughest thing I'd ever done. I mean, I thought I was going to disintegrate. I couldn't believe how brutally painful it was. But I finished. And I'm in the medical tent at the finish, and I see these same 2 guys, and they're high-fiving each other, saying, we qualified. I'm thinking, what'd you qualify for, the insane asylum? And the guy's like, no, we qualified for the Western States 100-mile endurance run. And I said, what? 100-mile endurance run? Like twice this far? He's like, yeah, buddy, twice this far. And I said, and in LA, he said, yeah, it starts at the base of the ski resort. The first 5 miles are a climb right to the top of the ski resort. And then you run 95 miles through the Sierra Nevada. I'm like, those are mountains. He's like, yeah, they're mountains. He said, you cross a river in the middle of the night. I said, hold it, you run straight through the night? He said, yeah, you try to finish under 24 hours. You got to run straight through the night. I said, well, how do you see? He said, you put on a headlamp. I said, where do you eat? He said, you eat while you run. You do everything while you run. And the last thing they said to me before they left is, hey, buddy, you qualified as well. And when they said that to me, it just gave me the chills. I mean, I knew that I would never live down that moment unless I tried this race. Like I had to sign up for this race. Otherwise, my whole life I'd be saying, wow, I qualified for this 100-mile race, and I didn't have the guts, to toe the line. So I did the first Western States I did was in 1994.
Okay. So you had this 30-mile middle of the night run, 30th birthday, which, did you have any, just looking back at that too, I found myself wondering, I mean, I know you ran as a kid and then just kind of put up your shoes for quite some time. Was there any inkling that maybe you were going to start running again? Or was it just truthfully, randomly out of the blue at this bar, you were just, we're doing this?
No, I mean, there's more of a backstory. And, if anyone listening to this is interested, I have a book called Ultra Marathon Man that you can either listen to or read. But my sister died in a car accident, and we're really, really close. So it kind of put me in this, spiral of downward emotions. And, I crawled into a bottle and started drinking pretty heavily just to numb the pain. And then I got really into my corporate job. I thought, just get yourself into the corporate world and make a shitload of money, and you'll be happy. You'll forget about everything. And I was miserable. I hated being a business guy. Even though I was successful, I just wasn't who I was. And I think it all came to a head on the night of my 30th birthday. And I just remember how running gave me this great release, this great sense of freedom. And it was empowering. And I wanted that back in my life. So I think it was, although it was a spontaneous idea to go run that night, I think it was, it just, my life came to a head. And the bad tequila, one of the drivers, yeah.
And I love, just not to give away too much, because I would say with that book, as well. I've listened to it a couple of times. It's kind of like if somebody asks if some people like to sit on the couch and just watch reruns of TV shows and movies. One of my favorite things is out on a long run, re-listening to good books. Ultra Marathon Man is one that I've listened to a couple of times. So anybody listening that hasn't read it should go check it out. I love at the end of it, there's definitely a little Taco Bell stop, which it's almost like, of course you managed to get Taco Bell in after tequila, even at the end of this or in the middle of this run, which was fantastic.
I think it saved me that, like, those middle of the night burritos. It was before there were gels or anything. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had no energy gels or nothing like that. So I had like $20 tucked in my sock, and I remember going up to the drive-through at Taco Bell because the doors weren't even open. Like, it was, it was closed, but it was. I went through the drive-through window and ordered.
And just fascinating. I love it. And you mentioned no gels. Another thing, I think that is another question I wanted to ask you about too, because you've seen just so much take place in this sport that you've spent your entire lifetime in. And, looking back at 1992, getting started in this, 94, first Western States. I mean, what do you think about things that have changed? I mean, what has happened inside of this sport? How do you feel about it? What are the biggest changes that you've noticed?
The sport has changed incredibly. It's definitely democratized. I mean, when I first started, it was mostly men and, kind of a very obscure sport. And, most of these guys that I was running with were, they're kind of the reclusive and, loners, if you will. And so nowadays, you see all types running ultramarathons. So it's about half and half women, half men, which I think is great. It's also become more competitive on both ends. The slower runners have gotten slower and the faster runners have gotten faster. So it's broadened quite a bit. It's big business now. It's legitimate business. I mean, if you look at a race like Western States or UTMB or any of the big races, these are big events. These are big professionally produced events. There's lots of money, on the line with sponsorship dollars. And there are, when I first started out, I remember this runner, Ann Trayson, and she was just the most badass. I mean, she was unstoppable. She'd win every race. She'd win the women's, division of every race she was in, and she'd win a lot of races just flat out. And I remember talking with her. She said she was having a hard time, making a living as an ultramarathoner. And I thought, that's crazy. I mean, this woman is, she's a goddess. And nowadays, people that are, have some social media following and are decent can make a pretty good living just as an ultramarathoner. So it's provided a lot of opportunity for people, which makes me proud because one of my charters is to grow the sport. I thought it's a wonderful sport, and I don't see any downside to more people being in it other than, these big marquee races like Western States. It's nearly impossible to get into these races through the lottery system. But I think, ultra running, I think it's a great community. I think ultra runners are, they're supportive people, positive people. They're very environmentally conscious. So, if there's one way you can waste, 8 or 10 hours instead of streaming Netflix, you can go run an ultra marathon. Yeah.
No, and that makes a ton of sense. It is fascinating to think about somebody like Ann Trayson. I think 14-time champion of Western States. I mean, just such a legend in the sport, and to think that she was struggling to make a living is absolutely insane. But if you think about your training, one thing I would love to ask you about too is, what is a typical, day to day? How do you spend your time training? What does that look like for you?
Well, I mean, there's almost no typical day. I change things up a whole lot. I'm also traveling a lot. I mean, I still spend a lot of time on the road. I'm going to events almost every weekend. I'm at an event somewhere in the world. So I'm traveling internationally. If I can get a solid training block, I'll take it. But a solid training block nowadays to me is a lot less base miles. I mean, I remember running sometimes 100, 150 miles a week, sometimes more. My body was fine with that. Now that would hobble me. So I'm doing a lot less running and a lot more cross training. either cardio cross training, either on an elliptical or a treadmill or actually a stationary bike. I'm also doing a lot more strength training. I'm never doing something that most people do all day, and that's sit down. So even now I'm standing up. And I have this commitment, from the moment I get out of bed to the moment I go back to sleep, I'm not going to sit down. So all day I'm standing up. I'm doing all my writing, all my emails, all my correspondences while I'm standing up, bouncing on my toes constantly.
Okay.
And I've got this HIIT training routine. So it's about a 12 or 13-minute routine of just body weight HIIT training. So it's, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, chair dips, and burpees. So I cycle through that 4 or 5 times during the day, this routine. So I'm constantly, I'm not just, saying, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for 1 hour. I'm working out throughout the course of the day, as well as running.
And would you looking back at the training that you've done, because I've definitely read about quite a bit of it, would you look back and give fresh starting out Dean some different advice about how he attacked training?
Yeah, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I remember earlier, I didn't know what a training block was, and there weren't professional coaches, so I just kind of put in a lot of base miles. I did a lot of hill repeats, thankfully, so I probably helped my VO2 max, but I didn't know what I was doing. I remember running. I ran Western States my first year in board shorts and surfing in surf shorts. I didn't even own running shorts.
Yeah.
I think I would have taken it a little more seriously. I never raced either. There was one race where I said, okay, I'm gonna actually race the Badwater. One year I said, I really want to win the Badwater, and I won the Badwater. But other than that, every race I entered, it was always just for the experience. Like I didn't really give a rat's ass if I was on the podium or not. Maybe I would have taken it a little more seriously, in hindsight. But the other thing that I'm thankful for is, I've done a lot of cross training and I, maintained my overall body strength. A lot of runners can't sustain a career for over 3 decades in ultra running. They just wear down and break apart. Where I've been hitting it really hard for that long. And, sure, my knees are not what they used to be, and I'm sure I have osteoarthritis, but if you compare me with some, a peer of mine that hasn't run, I'm probably in much better shape than they are.
Oh, absolutely. Just definitely in much better shape. It's interesting you would say that looking back, you would compete and race a little bit more. What makes you say that you would look back, you would go do that?
I probably could have had I could have had more top finishes if I'd taken it more seriously. Whether that matters in hindsight, I haven't won as many races as some runners, but I've won a lot more races than most runners. So I probably could have won more races. For what that's worth, I don't know. It might have taken the joy out of it for me. I know a lot of guys that I ran with, they were hyper competitive. They burned out. Where for me, I've always just loved running just for the act of running itself and the pure joy of it.
Well, I wonder what, in hindsight, correlation there is between that two, because you just mentioned your longevity in the sport and staying healthy, that not going 110% on every single race day that you had. I wonder how much of that correlates into not getting burnt out mentally, but also physically being able to hang on and continue to do what you love so much.
I think mentally more than physically. Physically, I definitely pushed it more than I think anyone I know. I've raced back-to-back 100-milers consistently. When I had my foot on the throttle, it was full on. I was racing way too many races a year, including marathons. I've run over 300 regular road marathons, where most ultra marathoners, might sprinkle in a marathon or two throughout their career. Where I'm, like I ran the Athens Marathon a couple of weeks ago. I probably ran half a dozen road marathons this year, along with probably a dozen ultra marathons.
Well, I definitely did not mean to suggest you aren't foot on the gas at all times, because you are. Look, thinking about you running 350 miles nonstop without sleep is mind-boggling. But it was an interesting thing that I was thinking about as I was getting ready for this interview, because when I got into the sport, it actually wasn't even, somebody invited me to run the Pikes Peak Marathon. I was a bodybuilder, more of a weightlifter. And
Yeah.
I've never run a marathon. My first marathon ever was to qualify for that one. And so it was intro into the sport, was just getting prepped up. And he sent me a handful of audiobooks. He's like, hey, on your runs, listen to these. And one of them was your book. And so for me, you're definitely a lot of people's entry into the sport. I mean, you're the person for a lot of people that really, we discover it, we find out what this looks like. And I was reading about it though, and just kind of looking at your career as a whole. And it was interesting that there is some criticism that I've never even heard of or thought about, whereas some criticism on like how much you actually did win. And you just kind of referenced it, that, you probably could have won more races if you were kind of upfront on that. How do you handle that type of criticism now, if you think about it? And I didn't even know that was a thing. Is that something that you deal with, and how do you handle it?
No, I mean, it's really not a thing. And I haven't dealt with it in a long time. I mean, I think people, like were comparing me with Scott Jurek. Scott's, he's won a lot more races than me. I never would deny that. A lot of times the criticism, like people say, oh, he's never won a race. I'm like, come on, look at you probably don't even know what I've done or what I haven't done. I've won plenty of races.
Yeah.
I haven't won as many races as Scott Jurek, not even close, but Scott's, I think he's a much more competitive and a better competitive runner than I am. I know he is a better competitive runner than me. So I think I have a good sense of my place in the sport. Some of the criticism, I think, like I said, is, people don't know my career. They really don't. Like, they say he's never won anything. I'm like, come on. I could go down. I've got a roster of events, of races I've run or won, but I just haven't promoted myself as the winningest runner, because I'm not. So, but I probably have done more races than any other runner. I would say marathoner or ultra marathoner, more varied races. I mean, I've done 6-day races. I've done self-supported races. I've done half marathons. I've done mountain runs. I've done trail runs. I've done snow runs. I mean, I've done so many varieties of races that, I pride myself on that.
For sure. Well, and you should. I mean, and just to be clear too, because and a little quote out from Ultra Marathon Man, I am definitely Team Dean. And when I read it, I was like, "Ooh, I don't even think anything this says is accurate inside of this paragraph," because in my mind, you're at the forefront of the sport I don't know that the sport would be what it is today if you weren't creating the awareness about, through writing books, things like that. Because I think that was what I was talking about too, is like the promotional stuff around it. And it was just interesting to me, because nowadays, if you open up social media, like there's so many influencers that don't even run any, like that just, they're plugging the sport and doing, in today's age, kind of what you did with books, they're doing on social media now. So I was just curious if you ever thought about that at all. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any regrets about it. I'm winning my age group now, because I'm an old fart. I'm the only one left in my age group, but I still win my age group, and sometimes I win the age group, a couple decades younger than me. So I'm still going, I'm still running, and maybe the people who are criticizing me aren't running it even anymore. I don't know, but yeah.
I would say that maybe they've never really run, because I think they always say criticism doesn't come from above. It always comes from below. And, it's, I'm just grateful for what you've done. And that's why it rubbed me the wrong way, but I was curious to ask you about it, if you had ever seen it. I had never seen it till the other day. So I was like deeply researching, and I just thought it was an interesting piece, but I just know the sport wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you doing what you did. So.
I got some criticism when my first book came out, that I exposed the world to the holy grail of running. I told the whole world about ultra running because of my book, and then people were pissed off about it. I'm like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah,
everyone has a right to their opinion.
Well, and I mean, with that too, I could see that's kind of like giving away the best fishing spot, letting everybody know about it, type of thing. And on the flip side, though, somebody like an Ann Trayson, if she was around now, I think of Courtney DeWolter, she's definitely not struggling to get paid. At least I hope she's not. I don't know what she gets paid, but it's because of the promotion and the growth of the sport, which is because of your books. So,
yeah. Well, and there's a lot of open trail out there. I respect, I'm a surfer as well. I'm like, you just don't tell people if you find a great surf spot in Baja, you you don't tell people about it because you keep it for your friends and your buddies. That's cool.
Yep.
Or a great fishing spot. Like, hey, I found this great with my dad, we're hiking, we found this great pond or whatever. But, ultra marathoning, the more the merrier. There's a lot of trails out there. There's a lot of innovations and types of races. I mean, there's backyard ultras, all kinds of stuff popping up. So I don't think there's any shortage of races for people to choose from because I brought more people into the sport.
Absolutely. And again, I'm one of those people. I've just had a blast diving into it, and very grateful for everything you've done. If somebody that's never done an ultra or ever even considered it, what would you tell them? Like, why should they jump into the sport? Like, why should they push those limits? Why should they even consider it?
I think it'll, if you do something that you once thought was impossible, it breaks down barriers, mental barriers, and those lessons carry over into everything in your life. I mean, I do a lot of talks at, running clubs and at expos for running events. And, I tell people they should run a marathon. And they say, oh, I can never run a marathon. And I tell them that's why you should run a marathon, because you think you could never run a marathon. And when you do it, you prove to yourself that nothing is impossible. And it changes everything about your constitution and your outlook on life. I mean, I want to ask you, how bad did your first marathon suck? Because that was not a flat marathon. It wasn't like you chose the Chicago Marathon.
No,
it was pretty flat. Yeah.
All of it was horribly amazing. And so my qualifying run was the fall equinox, and I'll never forget. I sat next to this girl on this. We were all loaded up on this school bus, and she said, how many marathons have you run? And I said, 0. And she said, what are you doing this for? I was like, well, I have to have a qualifying run for the Pikes Peak Marathon. And she started laughing out loud. Like, what are you doing? Did you do any research on this run that you're about to do? So even that one had a couple thousand vertical because they drove us up into the mountains. And, but it was crazy. And I remember thinking, this is it. I even told my wife, like, she still tells me to this day, like, do you remember when you told me Pikes Peak was going to be it? The Pikes Peak Marathon. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember. And then, you do it, it hurts. And then not 30 minutes or an hour goes by and you start thinking, I did that. What else could I do? And it's stacked from there. So that was my first experience. I appreciate you asking about it. So definitely it unlocks something, back to your point, that I think everybody should experience.
Yeah. I would say run Pikes Peak as your introduction, but
well,
go somewhere that's flat near sea level. And
I would definitely recommend that. I tend to go all in on things, maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit too soon, but I that's how I'd like to go, is just, let's do the thing. I got to run Leadville this past summer, which was my first 100. And that was just an absolute blast to be able to just complete it and do it. So
you finished it. Bravo.
Yeah. It was a tough one. It definitely, it stuck with me for a bit. It was a tough one to recover from, but it was great. I'm excited to do some more.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there in your backyard. It's not too far from Fort Collins. Did you get up there and train a bit? Did you go over Hope Pass a couple times, or I'm curious how you trained?
I did. I went to the Leadville, the training camp, which I'm not sure if you're. Okay. That was actually a fantastic training camp. I think I would go do that just for, if you like running, go to the Leadville training camp, because you actually run one direction of the entire course. And so you cover 50% of it, but it's an out and back. So if you cover one version of it, you've essentially seen the whole course. And they did a great job setting it up. I know Leadville gets a lot of slack from the ultra community, but the camp was really well set up.
Did you start in Leadville or finish in Leadville? Which direction did you go? I'm curious.
For the camp?
Yeah, the camp. When you did the training camp, you said it was one way.
They would shuttle you around wherever they wanted you to go. So, for instance, the first night we got there, they drove us out like 13 miles, I think, out to Mayfield, and we just ran that back. And then you get back in, and they had a breakfast burritos waiting for us. And then the next morning we woke up and they drove us to Mayfield again. We ran in the opposite direction to Twin Lakes. So we got to see all of the course in one directional piece, but they just did a good job of navigating it and shuffling us around, I thought, just to gain exposure. So that was a big training piece. And then I really stick to zone 2 a lot. That's a big thing for me, which actually loops into another question I had for you, which you kind of talked about it now with what you do currently with some of your HIIT workouts, things like that. But on top of that, if you didn't already mention it, but what's one habit or tactic that people would be surprised to know that you do for training? Just that ultra runners wouldn't expect.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've really gotten into is nose breathing. And just during my workout, I mean, there's this whole school of thought, always breathe through your nose. And these people are pretty fanatical nose breathers, but just as a means of forced hypoxia. So only breathing through my nose and pushing as hard as I can push. So, doing hill repeats, just breathing through my nose. And I mean, you're at a slow walk going up some of these hills, and your heart rate is, I get my heart rate to 180, which is theoretically impossible at my age, but, I should be dead. But, you're just, and I've never, I've moved my my VO2 max up by almost 10 points just by doing that. And VO2 max is notoriously difficult to nudge at all. And just from this nose breathe, this forced hypoxia, it's made a big impact on my overall level of fitness, my cardiovascular fitness. So try it. I mean, it's not easy to do because you just want to, when you're ready to collapse, you just want to get air into your lungs however you can, but force yourself to breathe through your nose. And it's a lot less impact because you're going slow. And, you get that, I think, a great return on your, workout value. So I'm barely running any base miles nowadays. I mean, I'm literally racing, recovering, tapering, and then racing again. So I'm basically, most of the miles I'm getting in are race miles.
That makes sense. And so are you nose breathing through those then too? Or are you just nose breathing in any training runs, or are you just...
Sometimes I shift to nose breathing when I'm racing as well. I mean, there's a lot of debate on the, how nose breathing changes the biochemistry of your blood. And I buy into a lot of it. It's pretty controversial, but I do find that nose breathing tends to bring down my heart rate when I'm racing. If I'm, not really, really pushing. So, I do nose breathe when I'm racing. I definitely nose breathe a lot when I'm training. The other thing I've discovered is poles. I never used to use poles. I used to be, oh, come on, poles. That's for pussies. Now I love my poles. I'm like the pole guy. My friends laugh at me because you're like, you used to tell us, we were wimps for using poles. Now you're using poles on every run. So I'm racing whenever I can race with poles. I'm using poles.
I remember, and it's in one of Goggins' books where he was really struggling in a run, and somebody handed him some poles, and he was just like, I used to hate these, but these are amazing, and just breath of fresh air with it. So and just thinking about it too, because I go off of heart rate for a lot of my runs. I try to just not let it get out of zone 2. If I were to go run right now on a training run, I'm going to go on a training run later today and practice it only breathing through my nose, or would you recommend I worry about heart rate, or just let heart rate do whatever it's going to do and breathe from my nose and see what happens?
Try to breathe through your nose and see if you can maintain the same pace. Are you going to do zone 2?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like when I'm running zone 2, for me, I could breathe through my nose pretty comfortably. Okay. I think that the benefits that I've really seen is when I elevate my intensity. So try doing some, just some fartleks or, just some shorter intervals at a higher intensity, just nose breathing.
Okay.
And you'll see your pace is not going to increase too much. It will initially, but then when you start going into oxygen debt, you're going to slow down, but your heart rate is going to be, definitely above what it would be at normal, at that pace.
Okay. So on some of my planned more high intensity workouts, some sprints, just any hill sprints, anything like that, practice it, let my heart rate just go out of control.
Out of control. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Push it as hard as you can and see how high you can get your heart rate. And
Okay.
again, if you're
Yeah.
doing a hill repeat, you're going to be crawling. You're going to be, turtles are going to be passing you, and you're going to be. It's great. Yeah.
People out just hiking past me, wondering why I'm dying on this hillside. But I mean, honestly, that sounds really great because staying in zone 2 for a long time is very much you're not sprinting, you're not getting the joys of speed. So that sounds like a really good one.
You'll definitely get you'll get a runner's high beyond what you normally would if you run the same distance, if you try some nose breathing, because your body's just struggling so much harder.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm definitely gonna dive into that. I think I've heard you reference that, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see what happens with it. And so you do a ton of cross training now, different things, just cycling, but mainly you find you spend more time just running races.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah.
All right. What's the most?
Yeah.
No, what's up?
Well, I mean, and they're mostly mountain races. I mean, I'm running, I would say hilly races. Here, I've been racing a lot in Greece. We talked about this before the interview. And there's some great road races in Greece, road ultras in Greece that are very mountainous, many more than in the U.S., road ultras. And I think one of the reasons is, the countryside here in Greece, there's no one out there. So there's not a lot of traffic. So you can have an ultra marathon and without having to worry about a lot of cars whizzing by. So they tend to stage a lot of them because there's not a well-developed trail network in Greece. I mean, there are main trails, but then if you go off the main trails, there's not a lot of smaller trails, and they're not well maintained. So they just stage these races on the road, but they're still through the mountains.
Got it. It's interesting, and that makes sense because my mind started going to here, and that's the same thing. Like even getting out of my neighborhood, getting into the city's trail system, I have to run on some major highways, and it gets a little sketchy sometimes. Whereas if there's not a lot of traffic, just utilize it rather than build another trail. Let's use this road that we've got here.
Yeah, yeah, and it's easier to get if you can have crew support, easier if you want to have crew. It's easier to set up aid stations, all those kind of things.
Okay. So another level of thinking that I want to, and you referenced it, or you mentioned Leadville, or we talked about it, is just, I think most people at some point in time are going to end up in a really a spot where they're hurting. And, for me in Leadville, it was like mile 80, my quad went out, just no more running was not possible. Fortunately, I was moving quick enough. Like I had banked enough time to be able to move slowly and get to the finish line. But those are some tough miles. And I can't imagine, I mean, just 350 miles nonstop. You're probably in and out of different levels of pain. Like if you had to distill your mindset for those hardest possible miles, like into one principle, like what would that be?
That would be to be in the present moment of time. So when things really, really are painful, don't think about anything. Thinking about the pain, thinking about anything is a problem. People would say, what do you think about when you hit the wall? Thinking is the problem. All I do is focus on taking my next footstep to the best of my ability. So I don't think about how much further I've got to go. I don't reflect on the past. I just put the blinders on everything except my next footstep. So I look down and say, take your next footstep to the best of your ability. Okay, take your next footstep to the best of your ability. Your next footstep to the best of your ability. And quiet your mind. And it's not too easy to do. It takes a lot of discipline because our minds are so active. I mean, even now, as we're doing this interview, you're thinking about 1,000 things. When am I going to ask Dean next? What's for lunch? Did my wife feed the dog? Whatever.
Yep.
All these things are racing through your mind. And to quiet your mind and just let these thoughts pass like, clouds in the sky blowing by is not easy. But I've learned how to do that. And it's almost like you're going through this Zen-like meditative state, and you forget about everything. You don't feel anything anymore. You just feel like you're, a spirit, moving along a pathway. You don't feel your knees. You don't feel anything.
Okay.
And then again, you fight it because then these thoughts come in. Oh my God, this sucks, and I'm never going to make it. And now, the cutoff time is coming or whatever. But again, you really have to work on quieting your mind. Just take your next footstep.
That makes a lot of sense. Just quieting the mind. And it just made me think of one other thing too, and it's something that I've done just a handful of ultras, but I find myself thinking about just the two types, and I'm sure there's more, but the idea of like running, chasing cutoffs, or running away from cutoffs, or running towards a goal time. Have you ever found yourself in any one of those, or do you prefer? I know you said you just quiet your mind in those painful moments, but have you ever thought about that? Just how it feels to be chasing cutoffs versus chasing a goal, and how that applies into life in general?
Yeah, there hasn't been too many races where I've actually missed, been timed out, thankfully.
Yep.
But I'm sure that is not a fun experience, especially if you still have some fight left in you. But I think, setting micro goals is always, a really good strategy. So, I think a lot of racers come in with a plan. And, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Courtney who said, plan the race and race the plan. But for me, every time I have a plan, then I need a plan B because plan A doesn't go how it's supposed to go. And then plan B, falls apart. And then I've got plan C. So, I have some time goals, but I try to adhere to those loosely until you're within, gravitational pull of the finish line. You usually know by that, if it's like Leadville, by, twin lights on the way back, is it going to be a good run or not? And then when you get to Mayfair, fuck yeah, I got it in me. I'm gonna turn on the afterburners, or you're just gonna say I'm cooked. There's nothing left in the tank, and I'm gonna walk it in, and thank God I made it before the cutoff. I'm gonna get that belt, that dinner plate buckle.
Yeah. Well, that's I've been fortunate enough not to get caught into any cutoffs, but it's definitely something that just just on an out and back, any out and back race where you end up seeing people that it's like, okay, this person's in a different mindset than I am right now. And that I want everybody to finish and do well, but it's just where I just find myself thinking about it on those big, cause you're out there all for many, many hours. And so that's just something that comes to my mind is just comparing it that, are you running away from things or running towards something, and just that different feel that it brings to the table. What are you most excited about right now? What are we going to look forward to seeing from Dean? Have you done just so many things with your life? What are you most excited about?
Yeah, I have this dream. I was planning with my friend, another ultramarathoner, Charlie Engel, to run from the lowest point on Earth to the highest point on Earth. So you probably know the highest point on Earth. It's not a trick question.
Yeah.
Mount Everest. Do you know the lowest point on Earth? It's the Dead Sea in Jordan.
Okay.
So starting at the Dead Sea and running to the top of Everest. I mean, obviously not, running as high as we can, definitely to Kathmandu, maybe to base camp, at least shuffling as fast as you can to get to base camp, and then obviously, climbing to the top of Everest. But, that's our goal.
Okay. So when is this? It sounds like this is happening. When is this going to take place?
It was in 2025.
Okay.
Now it was in 2026, but probably in 2027. Okay. Yeah, it's such a tricky thing to line up all the passports and the permits, and the route. The quickest route goes through Iraq and Iran, and those are not stable countries. So the more northern route goes through the stand, so through Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, and that adds a lot of distance and a lot of complexities.
Okay. So are y'all just navigating, getting through Iraq and Iran right now? Is that
we have a plan A, which is going through Iraq and Iran. Then we have a plan B, which is, this more northern route. And then, Charlie's got this plan C that I don't want any part of, but he's like, let's just get in a kayak and we're going to row across the Indian Ocean. And then we can. Okay.
That's just amazing. I love this. So what is that distance? Like, what is that time frame? Like, what is the distance from that Dead Sea to Everest?
It's about 3,000 miles. It's like running across the U.S. if you can go through Iraq and Iran. and it's about 5,000 miles if you can. And it's
Okay.
much more mountainous. And, the part of the tricky thing is, you have to arrive at base camp within a certain window, to climb Everest. So you
Right.
can't miss that window, or else, the storms come in and you're shut down for the year. Trying to plan how to get there within that window is the real complex thing.
What have you guys logistically juggled if you were to make it through Iraq and Iran, that 3,000 miles? What does that time frame look like?
That's it's about 75 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you ran across the U.S., that's about how long it took you as well.
Yeah, that was about
which is, just to talk about another amazing feat that we didn't even talk about earlier, running across the U.S. And so you think you'll be able to? You guys are going to plan on that 50-ish? I think you ran like 40 to 50 miles a day type of thing.
That'd be our plan. Yeah.
Okay.
I tell you, I ran 50 marathons and all the 50 U.S. states in 50 days, but that was a little tougher, I think, than running across the U.S. because of the logistics. Every day after I finished the marathon, we'd have to move around. Like some days we'd drive for 8 or 10 hours in a school bus after running a marathon. Where when I ran across the U.S., I kind of just, where we stopped, we kind of slept right there, got up the next morning and kept going. So there's a lot less moving around, and it seems to make it easier.
I can see that. When navigating Alaska, Hawaii, because I would imagine that just threw a big curveball into it. Interesting.
Yeah, I ran the San Francisco marathon, then I swam to Hawaii, and then from there
yeah.
If Charlie had his way, I would have.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Charlie. That was his game plan. We got to swim there to make this happen.
Yeah. Those 2 flights were tough because running the marathon, getting on a plane, flying to Hawaii, running, and then getting on a plane, flying to Alaska, and then getting on a plane and flying to Seattle. That was tough.
Well, I think about, and it's fascinating to think about this, that how we look at what's possible and how you look at what's possible and then you do it. Like, oh, what else could we do? And it's, logistically speaking, connecting all those flights, not having any delays, not having any flight cancellations, like so many variables out of your control that you manage to sync up with. And now, more extreme thing, let's see if we can talk to these 2 countries that, relationship-wise, conflict-wise, all these things going on, and see if you can navigate that so you can get passage through. So.
Well, I mean, the ironic thing is that I've mentioned this in a couple of interviews before, and I've gotten so many messages from people in those 2 countries, mainly Iran, that have said, hey, Dean, you guys show up at our border and we will escort you across our country with 100 runners surrounding you. They're like,
what?
Come, we're runners just like you guys. We love you. Let's do this together. Amazing. Let's do it for humanity. So
I think that gives me chills. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, it's all right. The State Department's not buying into it.
They're not wanting you to?
Well, they're just saying, like, are they going to stop terrorists, these 100 runners? And, I don't know. I mean, I see it both ways.
Yeah. Do you have to get the State Department approval?
You don't have to, but it's good to have their blessing because, I mean, if you don't have their blessing, we're U.S. citizens, so they're going to come to your support. If you do it without their blessing, you're kind of on your own.
Gotcha. So having their blessing.
There's a lot of benefits to being a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, and having the blessing to go do that. I do hope they allow you to knock that out, because what an incredible journey. The lowest point to the highest point. And I don't know, and I quickly, when I Google it, what is that elevation at the Dead Sea?
I think it's minus, I can't remember exactly myself, but I think it's 450 feet below sea level.
Okay. So it's not, yeah. I mean, it's below sea level all the way up. And are you going to go, like, the goal is to summit Everest?
Summit Everest, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. What an epic journey. Would the plan be to, build a social media following? Are we going to be able to watch it, get updates on it each day?
Yeah, we hope to have a film crew with us at least part of the way. So, Charlie actually is a documentarian, so we could film each other as well. So we definitely, we'll make it a public sort of thing. And yeah,
Man,
and
that's super.
if you want to come crew for us, you're welcome.
Yeah, man, I was just gonna say I would love to make it out there, see if I can see what I can do, which part of the journey. But it sounds like you're gonna have tons of people from all over the world. And again, the impact that you've had on running.
I think that's part of the beauty of it. I think that running is something that a commonality that all humans share. I mean, let's face it, there's so many things in this world that divide us, right? I mean, the language we speak, our nationality, the color of our skin, the God we worship, whatever, our socioeconomic level. But running is a great unifier. When we run, it's the same. No matter what language someone speaks, when I run with them, there's always joy between us. It's like a transmutation. No words need to be spoken.
Such a true statement. I was running with somebody this last weekend. I flew out to the Western States Lottery, and I just jumped on the trail because I'm here. I want to see what this epic trail is all about, and ended up linking up with two other ultra runners, and that was a conversation we had. Is that no matter where you end up, just if you're in another country and you're out running, you'd link up with people, and it's just all of a sudden you are together and you're one unit. It's man.
Yeah, well, maybe one day we can all share the Western States Trail. But until then, good luck with the lottery, right?
Man, it's wild to think. And that one just, I think with the laws in place, that's what keeps it so much smaller. I often wonder if they're constantly trying to get more seats for it. But as of right now, is it 369 that's allowed to run it?
That's it. It's a quirk with the national parks that goes through some national park areas. They were not going to be allowed to do the race. I can't remember what year it was, and they got permission to hold the race, but they said you can never have in future years you can't have more runners than this year. And that year they did it. I don't know, it was maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
There was 369 runners. I know they're trying to buy some private property and potentially reroute the race slightly to avoid that limitation. But they still, I know the president of Western States pretty well, Topher Gaylord, and the ultimate goal, if possible, would be more like 500 runners. So it's still not going to be like UTMB.
Yeah, where it's just thousands. Thousands of people. Well, even that, there was a guy that I ended up sitting next to that it is his 10th year play. He had 512 tickets. I think he had it was like 79% chance of getting called. Yeah. And his name still didn't get called, which was just mind-blowing to think about how difficult it is. And fortunately for him, because he's just a top-notch guy, he's been trying to get in for the last 10 years into this race. And fortunately, they put him up to the front of the wait list. So he's going to run Western States this year. But just to think that I thought for sure his name was getting picked, and it was not to be. So
and I have a 10-year finisher buckle. I think I've done it. I've done it 13 times, and nowadays that thing is priceless because it's how can you possibly get in 10? It's not like there aren't other athletes that could complete Western States 10 times.
Yeah.
But just to get in, you'd have to be 300 years old before you got in 10 times.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Unless you're, in the top 10 finisher, which is just, those times are getting so fast.
So fast. And the golden ticket, you look at the gold, even someone like David Roche, who's, he got in, with the golden ticket. Can he do that for 10 years? He's a great runner, but there's younger kids coming up.
Yeah.
So I'm holding on to that buckle. Of all my buckles, I'm going to cherish that one.
Is that your favorite one?
Maybe, Western States is my first 100 miler, and your first is always your best. And certainly to get a 10-time buckle is pretty special.
It's like you said, that's a rare one. I don't know how many more they'll be able to give out over the years because it's such a tough one to get into. It's a tough race, just all around. So that's
and say I've got a 10-year finisher at Badwater as well. I think I'm the only person that has a 10-year finisher, 10-time finisher at Badwater and Western States. I don't know of anyone else.
I know people
that have finished Badwater 10 times. People have finished Western States 10 times, but I don't know anyone who's finished both of them 10 times.
Interesting. I did not know.
I mean, not that it's a big deal, but I'm trying to remember. I don't think there is. Not that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's a very big deal. The fact, like doing Badwater one, like you're a Badwater champion. You won it one year. Like that's massive. Finishing
I tell people I won. I tell people I don't tell people I won. I say I survived the fastest because Badwater's about survival.
Well, it's just fascinating. I just didn't know that, and that's what I think is just impressive with it. And you're very humble with it, but you've got so many accolades. It's tough to keep up with like the things that you've done in the sport, and that's what's, I think is fascinating with you is, I mean, your career is ultras, but you've made it an ultra career because you're always in it. You're always doing it. Now the Dead Sea to the top of Everest. It's fascinating. I mean, your life is an ultra, and that's pretty great.
Yeah, no, I'm fortunate that I've been able to live the life I have, and yeah, and I'm glad to be able to share it with people. Yeah, and that said, I mean, your story is incredibly inspiring to me. I mean, this story, Pikes Peak, your second marathon.
Wow.
I mean, that people say, "Oh, you're so inspirational," and then I start talking to them, like, "God, you're so inspirational." So,
Wow.
Inspiration is a two-way trail. Yeah.
I appreciate it, and it's kind words, and it's I just like you brought up earlier, and you brought up with the one thing I find is a common thread with ultras is just full of good people. Just everywhere is just really good folks. That it's such a great community. I found out something interesting recently. We have a friend so my crew chief. That's all. She just loves crewing for Leadville, and she loves ultras. She says, "I don't want to be I don't want to do an ultra, but I want to be around it." And her friend just did Moab this year, and she finished, and it's DFL, dead effing last. And it was something I didn't realize what a celebratory event that is in the ultra community. Do you know much about that?
DFL, yeah, the golden hour of I remember when the whole thing started coming around.
To suffer the most, that it's like they did this big, huge, like the whole camp. There's a big video of it where everybody shut down, and it was almost like she won. If you watch this video of her, you would have thought she won the race, but they celebrate it because, to your point, like you finished the quickest, or I don't remember exactly how you said it. You suffered the quickest,
survived the fastest,
fastest. Whereas like to survive the longest is a different thing, and they celebrate. It was an interesting thing. So we got you lining up Dead Sea to Everest. That's on the horizon. Are you already planning on what's next? Is there another thing as well?
I'm going to be part of the Olympic ceremony in 2028. So the Olympics are coming to LA.
Okay.
So I've carried the Olympic torch twice.
Okay.
And, being a Greek that was born in LA, so, Greek ancestry, with, the Olympics began, and then having it come to LA, hopefully I'll be pretty steeped in the Olympic ceremony. But that's something I'm looking forward to very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I would imagine that's not something that gets old, is be able to be a part of something so monumental.
And knowing the history and knowing the genesis and going to ancient Olympia. I mean, here in Greece, you can visit the birthplace of the Olympics, and it's spine chilling to go there because you can walk around the ancient grounds, and like this time of year, there's no one there. You're by yourself, and it's if this was America, there'd be park rangers, there'd be guided tours, there'd be buses, and it's Greece. You just go there, and I think you pay €5, and you go walk around these grounds, and you see where the first Olympics began, the first track where they had the first Olympics in 776 BC, and you're just standing there. It's incredible. Yeah.
Wow. Are you? I mean, my first thought, which I feel it might be very touristy, I'm going to say it anyway because I paused with it, was like, do you ever just do a jog around it just to Is that even allowed? Like, I feel
Oh
like I'd
yeah,
probably
yeah.
get thrown up
No,
on. Like, I
no,
just like,
no. I run around there all the time. Yeah,
yeah,
you can
just,
go on the track. I mean, they just let you
yeah,
go run on it. Yeah.
that's incredible. That's so amazing. And so what, you just like going to be a part of the history of it and just walking around and,
Part of the history, part of the lore. There's an ultra marathon, 110-mile ultra marathon that finishes on that ancient track, and I've done that, and that finish is amazing. But I mean, you literally finish, and there's a couple people standing there, like, "Hey, congratulations!" If this is America, you'd be 10,000 people. There'd be banners, corporate logos, and you just finished this race. So I'm like, that's cool. 26 hours. Congrats.
what's the name of that ultra? If we can give away, I feel like this is that secret pond that you're giving this, the fishing hole, the best surfing spot. What's the name of that one?
It's called the Olympia race, like
Okay.
ancient Olympia. So it's called the Olympia race. I'd love to see more Americans come over here. I'd love it because it's 95% Greeks. I mean, there might be an Italian, maybe a Croatian, maybe a Romanian, maybe someone from the UK. I don't even think there's 2 guys from the UK this year.
Okay.
One of them DNF'd. I'm not sure if the other one was crewing for him. So that was it. There was I was the only American. And I'm not even a real American. I'm like half American.
Okay.
But I'd love to have more. It's the Olympia race. Yeah, I'd love to see more people showing up. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Well, and that's something that we, I read about. You think about Western states, how difficult it is to get into, and these big races, just the lottery systems in place. One thing I do read about is just how many wonderful ultra races there are around the world that nobody knows about, or that just not as many people show up to. That there's kind of this horde of people trying to show up to one or 2 races versus exploring the vast, the wide array of different ones out there. So I think that's another example of just a really cool race. So, man, thank you so much, Dean. I appreciate you for joining in. I do have one closing question. It's a selfish one because I did actually get into Western states via the charity raffle.
You got in. Congratulations. I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay. You saved the best for last. Yeah, you're the best for last. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, it's not in the lottery because I only had 2 tickets. I got in the charity raffle. So that's why it's actually in for 2027. So I have 18 months, which I actually really enjoy that I have that kind of a runway to get ready for such an iconic race. So I'm jazzed out of my mind. What's the single best piece of advice you'd give somebody heading into this window?
Train for the downhills at Western States.
Okay.
They'll trash you. And not only that, don't just run hard downhill straight, run switchbacks hard downhill. Okay. Where you're cutting corners, because I'm amazed at how many really, really good runners just have their quads turn into hamburger meat from this downhill. Western States is mostly a downhill race. I think there's like 21,000 feet of downhill and 16K of uphill. So you're going to be climbing, but it's the downhill that is going to get you hopefully a silver buckle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Train for the downhill. Yeah.
Train the downhill. That's what I'll do. I appreciate it.
And try the nose breathing. Try the nose breathing and the downhill. Yeah.
The nose breathing and the downhill. I'm definitely excited to give it. My next sprint is going to be nose breathing, and I'll be thinking of you, hopefully cursing you during it and then thanking you when it's done. All right. Dean, enjoy your time out in Greece. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Progress doesn't happen all at once. It only happens 1 mile at a time. If this show resonated with you, pass it along. And until next time, take the shot.